The Iron Riders, a 20-soldier-strong league that took part in testing the viability of a new mode of transport in the United States, the bicycle. They were the 25th Infantry Bicycle Corps, formed in 1896. They were one of the few regiments that were made up of segregated troops of black soldiers, nicknamed the Buffalo Soldiers. The test of the revolutionary human-powered mode of transport was led by White Lieutenant James A. Moss, a cyclist who saw the potential in the Army's use of bicycles. General Nelson A. Miles, who placed Moss in command of this regiment, also shared this interest. Test excursions were lengthy. Moss led them on trips starting from their base in Missoula, Montana. 2 initial trips took them through Yellowstone and the Rocky Mountains. Their last trip took them from their base to St. Louis, Missouri in 1897. A 1,900-mile trip was braved on single-speed, solid iron bikes while carrying all of their supplies on their person. 41 days later, with the rate of 46 miles per day, they arrived at their destination in St. Louis. They were escorted into town by mounted police and amateur cyclists. They were greeted by around 10,000 people. With no other influence from the past after this obscure piece of 19th century black history, it would seem that a series of events after it would lead to the present-day neutrality of American biking culture. The bike is blind to the demographic of the one riding it, as everyone has equal access to ride their bikes wherever they may want to go. This neutrality is not present in modern-day America. Regions in a city that are below the most privileged areas show this disparity, especially those that are predominantly black. When black people choose to partake in cycling for commuting, health, leisure, or sport, it can be seen that they are not adequately equipped by the given city's legacy urban planning to have a safe and effective ride. Black individuals on bikes do not have the same experience as their white counterparts. Rampant police bias, historical lack of investment in disadvantaged communities of color, and a general pro-car grip on the progress of the United States transit contributes to this unfairness. A picture has been painted of a commuter or a casual rider being able to bike to the city's center or to their workplace through an efficient network of safe bike lanes. This is what most positive press cities have been receiving over the years. But what isn't talked about is where this infrastructure is popping up.
American cities have failed to design roads for bikes ever since the turn of the century, when bicyclists, people who rode bikes, demanded pavement. It was actually the Good Roads movement, spawned by bike riders, that got smoothly paved roads in the first place, that the automobile industry promptly kicked bicyclists off of. And ever since then, and especially after World War II in the 50s and 60s, the United States invested all of its transportation money, for the most part, into automobility, into a system that required people to own and operate a car in order to get around.
The scope of this unjust issue can be looked at in its solutions, like a list of bullet-point categories. A vast majority of these are tough to enact within a short time frame that would be satisfactory. It's necessary to look at 2 examples of flawed solutions on this list that would be quickly struck down in the United States. They provide context on the institutions that contribute to the problem, along with how deeply rooted they are in the system. The police system could be reformed. A total rethinking of how a public servant should be enforcing the law could stop the added danger of biking while black. Being forced to ride on sidewalks by traffic, and riding on the road where cars are dominant, leads to added racial profiling by police. Minor traffic violations can escalate to searches, arrests, and violent force. This has proven to be a long-fought issue, as congresspeople and activists alike have fought for this reform, but incidents still arise. For example, Los Angeles, 2020. 29-year-old Dejan Kazee was pursued by Los Angeles deputies for riding on the wrong side of the road. The altercation ended in Kazee being shot 16 times after running from deputies on foot. Kazee died over a minor traffic infraction racially escalated by police, initially introduced by a lack of bike infrastructure in the neighborhood he was first confronted in. Only painted logos marking bike routes were present over roads that cars dominated. An overly dominant dependence on cars could be eliminated through various movements, whether it be regulatory, through complete infrastructure reform, or the dismantling of pro-car monopolies lobbying for an abundance of car infrastructure. These movements have also proven to be hard to enact in a period that would grant black bike riders a sense of safety while they ride. What can be done to boost safety is reversing the effects of historical lack of investment by city planners. Bike infrastructure can be improved in areas that need it, instead of areas that the wealthy deem convenient for themselves and biking-associated outlets that rake in revenue, such as tourism.
While it might be common sense what bicyclists need, it's very challenging for cities to build this infrastructure because of the status quo dependence upon automobiles has made it difficult to build out the protected bike lanes where they're needed. For example, cities might build a bike trail, along the lake or a beautiful bike lane for miles and miles through their city, but then they get to a place on the roadway where it's very congested.
This clear discrimination allows for not only the continuing of race-defined bias in how cyclists are perceived in a community, but also for cycling to become a more dangerous activity for those who are black. This lack of safety can be drawn back to how there is a lack of adequate bike infrastructure, such as bike lanes, that can be found in disadvantaged communities of color. These areas have thin lanes that have nearly no protection from unpredictable drivers, or a complete lack of lanes that force bikers to either ride in the road or ride on the sidewalk. Both of these choices of desperation are dangerous. The road presents danger of collision. The American Journal of Preventive Medicine found that in 2022 alone, Black Americans were killed in cycling accidents 4 times the rate of white Americans nationwide. Riding on the sidewalk poses risk of police persecution, as most cities rule sidewalk riding or even walking of bikes on sidewalks to be illegal, justifying a ticket. The New York Division of Streets blog used public data provided by the Department of Transportation to discover that in 2018 to 2019, 86.4% of sidewalk riding tickets were issued by police to Black and Hispanic New Yorkers in Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. The Omnibus survey from Princeton Survey Research Associates asked about biker safety. 26% of African American riders felt that they would like to ride more without worrying about safety in traffic. That's 7% more than 19% of white American riders who said the same. Because of the lack of infrastructure and safe cycling facilities, cities should be rebuilt from the ground up to mirror cities that have moved away from car dependency, such as Copenhagen, Denmark, or Amsterdam, Netherlands. Again, solutions like these take years of activism and government shifts, especially if taking on such things in the United States. Nonprofit organizations that deal with issues like these are the voice of the people they may advocate for. The people in question would not have the same political leverage to enact change otherwise. Nonprofit organizations that advocate for bikes can be found from the national to the city level. People for Bikes, a national nonprofit organization, is one of these establishments that helps cities integrate efficient bike infrastructure into the system.
I am on the leadership team at People for Bikes that is working with cities to help them make their cities safer for bicycling. People for Bikes' current strategy to help folks build bike infrastructure is expressed in the Great Bike Infrastructure Project. That's a campaign that has 3 parts, all of which lead to protected bikeways, whole connected networks of low-stress bikeways, protected bike lanes, residential streets. The 3 parts of the Great Bike Infrastructure Project are a package of model legislation that local and state legislators can adopt. Elected official can find something that works for them. We've identified the top priorities in legislation that people should advance. Second part is a list of more than 1,300 bicycle infrastructure projects across the country that we're monitoring and will help local advocates make sure that every last one of those 1,300 projects gets across the finish line. Many of them run the risk of not being funded. The city might want to fund a new parking garage instead of a safe bike lane, and we want to make sure that they give folks the choice of riding a bike. And the third part is our local infrastructure investments, where we will take a deeper dive into a local community and help them build out a network of low-stress bikeways in their community by providing the political support, whatever it takes, to get their officials to implement a bold vision for a network of protected bikeways.
Overall, there is hope in the influence nonprofits bring to the table to solve this issue. These advocacy groups have proven to successfully enact change that grants more accessibility and safety. Biking is an important mode of transport that can be used as a solution to fight climate change, move away from car dependency, promote health, and encourage efficient travel. Therefore, it has to fulfill a promise that the Iron Riders would have agreed with in their time. A promise of race neutrality that would become ingrained in the culture of biking in the United States today, where the bike can be a mode of transport that guarantees its safety, efficiency, and the rest of its benefits to the one riding it, as well as the area they ride in. The quality of American bike infrastructure just has to reflect this promise.